Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Ruby.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm still haven't been able to get in because of the different emails I got. So if you could just email me the
I did. It
Zoom
came.
number.
I can't.
Yeah, I only
It
could get
came,
on through the phone, so I can't see anything.
the email came through the Durham Opening Doors email.
Yeah, but if it's I didn't register my new email on there, and it's not letting me join on it. So I've been trying for a minute now. So if I could just, I guess, just go to Zoom and write the number down in the passcode. I guess I need the passcode down.
All right, good afternoon. Give us a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm here, Colin.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You're just showing up as your name is showing up as Shayna's.
Hey, Shayna, I'm just win today.
You're
Didn't
you're
go
playing the
through.
role of Shayna and Angel.
Yeah, right.
All right, Madam Chair. Ruby, do we have a quorum?
Give me 1 second.
Yes, ma'am. I think once
Thank
we've
you.
got a quorum, Angel, you can call it
Is
to
it,
order.
let me know.
Waiting on one more HSAC member to join. We have quorum now.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 19th, 2022 HSAC meeting. And our goals is to finish the job of ending chronic homelessness, prevent and end veterans homelessness, prevent and end homelessness for families, youth, and children. Set a path to ending all types of homelessness. So agenda number 1, we're gonna call to order in housekeeping. Ruby, so we do have a quorum, so we could continue on. Are there anyone, I'm sorry, we're gonna go to the minutes and approval. I do apologize for rushing. Are there any additionals or corrections to the December 15th minutes that were sent out? So if there is a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as read. Sharita.
Thank you, Sharita. Is there a second? Please vote in the chat
Second.
as we finish. Who was that for the second?
Anthony.
Oh, Ebony. Hey, Ebony, thank you. You vote in the chat, please, and thank you.
Motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Birch. We're moving on to number 3, the public comment period. Ruby, has anyone signed up for public comment?
No public comments on it.
Okay, thank you so much. We're moving on to number 4, policy and planning committee quarterly report.
Good morning,
we
committee. I mean, not morning, good afternoon. I'm sorry. You ready for me? Because I'm
Yes,
ready.
ma'am, go ahead. Let it rip.
Hello, everyone. Policy and planning has had a lot of robust conversations about a lot of important things. Many of those things I realize are on our agenda today as items that we will be discussing, or they were items on our agenda on last month that we've already discussed. So in the last quarter, we have approved the process for our point in time count for this year. You will get more updated details about that later on in our meeting. We have discussed our white flag protocol as we are moving into our winter season, and taking into account the pandemic and how that kind of makes it a whole lot more complicated. We've been doing a whole lot of conversations around our white flag protocol and the impacts of it through the pandemic. I think we will get an update from Ms. Carolyn or Open Table Ministry later on in this meeting. And then the last thing we have focused on is the House America Challenge, which you guys will hear more about that in this meeting today. And that is an item I think that it's requiring us to vote on. So
Take a
you will
vote
hear
on it.
more about that. I will definitely like to add that the last thing that we've added to our policy and planning meetings is we begin each meeting with the update on our unsheltered count. I think that is very important, especially as we move into um, our winter season, but also just to kind of see where we live to help guide us on the next steps of what we need to do and what we have missing in our continuum and what we hope to be able to create as we move forward. And I just wanted to share a little bit of that information of what we've learned since we've been doing that. So our unsheltered singles count has lived around 110 people. That means our shelters are full and we still have 110 people without shelter. Um, our families numbers live between 10 and 18 on average. So we have between 10 and 18 families of varying sizes on the street. Um, I think that we need to be paying attention to that and helping using that information to kind of shape ask in the future. And so with that being said, in the coming months, we will be looking at homeless system needs. We'll be working on a wish list. We'll be looking at new funding opportunities that are coming along and trying to figure out how we put funds together, look at the resources that we have to be able to expand what we can offer, while at the same time taking into account all the lessons we've learned from our pandemic and what that tells us about our shelter system. So I look forward to being able to share those in our next quarterly update and hopefully, be able to report us making some progress on some needed changes in our system. That is all.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sharita. Oh, am I muted? No. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one, number 5, the emergency rental assistance. And this is the legal aid of North Carolina. The background information about emergency rental assistance program open for applicants on January the 12th. It says that it's, well, Brent, are you here, Brent, to speak? Because I see Sarah is not on.
Yes, ma'am, I am here. Me and my colleague Leanne as well. And Samantha Pittman is also here. She's actually a bit more directly involved in the program itself, whereas me and Leanne are just housing attorneys on the Durham team. So Samantha could speak to a lot more to the sort of technical side of things, but I'm glad to sort of add a little extra flourish on that as well.
All right, go ahead.
You guys just want kind of a brief overview of kind of what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
All right, okay, go ahead. Because I guess it was a mix-up because I thought Sarah, the model, was going to speak on it from last week, but you could go ahead.
She was not able to make it today, so I'm jumping in.
Okay.
But I am the program manager at Legal Aid for the Durham Rent Relief Program. We've got about $6 million in rent relief assistance to give out to the city. We opened up last Wednesday, I think was the 12th. And in about a week, we've had about 1,800 applications come through. So I would assume with those 1,800, we're probably pretty close to that 6 million. We don't know that. We're still kind of going through a review process and checking all those applications and everything. But that's the big picture. We've got about 18 on the team that are kind of helping us out on reviewing and team leads and things like that. So things seem to be going pretty smoothly. Haven't had any big hiccups. We're hoping to get our first kind of round of checks and distributions out sometime this week.
Okay, Brent, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I think Samantha laid it out very well. I would just say Obviously it's a program that many folks who are current legal aid clients have applied for, but obviously it's more broadly available, right? We've got a lot of former clients, a lot of folks who've never been our clients who are applying, and just I think encouraging folks to continue to apply and let's get this money spent down, I think is the key.
Okay, well, thank you, Samantha and Brent. Are there any questions for either one of them? Anyone have? Any questions?
Hi, it's Sharita. Can I ask questions?
Sure.
So you said, since you opened up last week, you've taken in about 1,800 applications. Did I hear you correctly say that you think you might be at the 6 million? Is that what you said?
I would assume that somewhere, if we combined everything, we're probably close to it. With that being said, we're not gonna close down applications yet. We do have a wait list that's sorted on priorities. It's sorted kind of on evictions and unemployment as well as their AMI. So we're sorting that wait list, and any new applications that come in are getting sorted as well. So that's not to say that someone who applies tomorrow might not get the rental assistance. They could be on the wait list a little bit up higher. So we're still encouraging people to apply until we get a kind of a better understanding of where we are money wise.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions to ask?
Yes, this is Tracy with Alliance Health. Is this a different source of funding from the CARES Act and the recovery funds?
Yes, this is city specific. So everything else has been either state or, government wise. This is the city of Durham specifically.
I'm sorry, I have another question. Can I ask it?
Sure.
Does the person have to have a lease?
They need to have a lease. If they have a month-to-month lease, that's okay as well, but we need some type of statement. I mean, it doesn't have to be a formal statement. It can be just a statement written and signed by the landlord saying, this person lives here and they're paying me this much in rent. So it doesn't have to be anything super formal, but if it's not formal like that, it does need to be kind of directly from the landlord or whoever they're renting from.
Okay.
I got another question. So how do you vet that to make sure that that's a representative document? Like they just didn't get a random person to draft them something.
So we have, our applicants apply. There's also a way for the landlord to go back in and apply. So if, we approve for whatever amount of rent they have, we're going to go get the landlord to let them know that they're approved, have them opt in the program. So they kind of have to submit their own application. And that's where we would get that piece of document from directly from the landlord.
Okay.
Thanks.
Welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? This has been going on for a while, and I'm quite sure someone has a few more questions about the emergency rental assistance round 2 that we're going through besides Sharita. Does anyone else have any questions to ask them while they're on?
And I can always put my email in the chat. If you guys do have any questions, you're more than welcome to send me an email separately and we can chat that way as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She's going to put that in the email for you all. You could think of something else later on. So with that being said, we're going to move on to number 6 for the House American discussion. And then that's going to be presented by you, Colin. Are you ready? Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So we have, before Mayor Schul left, HUD started an initiative called House America. And the goal is to sort of say, all right, communities across the country, you're getting all this extra money and let's set some goals. Let's try and help people exit homelessness to permanent housing. Let's bring some targeted units online for people experiencing homelessness that are being developed during the calendar year of 2022. So January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022. And we sort of got all these details late in the year. Policy and planning talked about it and decided, made some recommendations and came up with a number that we'd like to share with HSAC in terms of the number of people we will rehouse from homelessness to permanent housing. And knowing that we have been seeing a gradual decline over the last 2 years in the numbers of people exiting to permanent housing due to the increasing rents, fewer number of affordable units on available to our population, and fewer landlords willing to lease to people exiting homelessness due to a lot of the barriers that many of our folks are experiencing. So policy and planning had a very long and robust conversation and put out to a vote of 2 different numbers, and the committee voted to recommend that we try to stop the slide as best we can, knowing that stopping the negative slide is going to be a stretch for us, just given the fact that ESG COVID funds will be coming to an end this year and the lack of units that are even available to us. So the 2 numbers that were put forth to the committee were trying to rehouse 185 households or 165 households. And there was not a unanimous vote in policy and planning. It was a split vote. It was a 6-3 and 6-3. The 6 recommended 185 households, which is basically keeping our rehousing efforts flat for the coming year. Based on last year, we rehoused 185 households. So the goal, knowing that 185 will be a stretch, this number will go into a proclamation that would go to City Council to be made, as well as to HUD, and we will be reporting on this, our progress as a community towards this, knowing that 185 is a stretch. We hopefully will stay flat with these extra funds. It's also possible we may not hit 185 due to things that are beyond our control. The second matrix that we're required to report on is a little bit more outside of our control. It's more in line with what the multifamily team is doing in terms of development and redevelopment of properties across Durham. And the way we defined, the way House America said is in the pipeline. So we wanted to be a little bit more concrete with pipeline, and we operationalized pipeline to be ground will be breaking sometime in 2022. Because if we're not breaking ground in 2022, these units won't be available for way longer. So we are anticipating that there will be 25 specific units that will be eligible to people exiting homelessness in different projects that are breaking ground this year. So we're aiming to make sure that we've got the 25 earmarked and systems in place so that when those units are fully developed, we'll be able to take full advantage of those 25 units that'll be earmarked for referrals from the homeless system. So those are the 2 numbers that we would like to propose to HSAC to put forth to HUD as our community benchmarks that we'll share with City Council. And I believe Commissioner Carter indicated that she thought the commissioners may also want to make a similar proclamation that the council would be making. So that's where we are. Questions, thoughts? Motion to adopt it?
Does anyone have any input on what he just said? Any
This is Tracy with the Lions. Is this new multifamily development that you're referring to?
These are units that are either in contract, in the process of finishing contracts, or are at the point that they will be breaking ground on development this calendar year. So it's a mix of, so let me go pull the,
I was wondering, is this mixed income, mixed use types of development? Is there a slated number of units within those developments that will be targeted for this particular population?
yes, they're mixed units. So there's, one of the places has 75 or 72 units, and it's a DHA property. So 5% of those are targeted for people experiencing homelessness. There's a few others that are sort of mixed tax credits that rely on some pieces of tenant selection plans. And then CASA is developing a 16-unit building, and a good number of those will be set aside for people exiting homelessness as well. So it's a mix of projects and developers. Go ahead, Ryan. Or did that answer your question, Tracy?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. And I saw Ryan, and then I saw Ricky.
I'm sorry if I missed this. For the state has kind of struggled to get mayors to officially sign on. I know that the mayor of Charlotte signed on, and that Mary Ann Baldwin signed on in Raleigh very recently. Have we made an ask of Mayor O'Neill? And I just wondered, if we're going to officially approve the targets, should we also potentially have a motion to make an official ask of the mayor as well? I'd just be curious to get your perspective.
And this was brought up during, I think HUD launched it at the end of September, and I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, when Mayor Schul, met with HUD and Community Development Department and sort of said, yeah, we'll do this, and sort of started this. But yes, it'll eventually, part of this, a letter has to come from the mayor or a proclamation from city council. There has to be a formal adoption of it. So the proclamation will have to go through the city council process, and we'll make sure that we take this through the proper channels. But we didn't want to take a number until we as the homeless group were comfortable with that number. Does that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. And if you're looking for a delegation from the HSAC and need folks, I'd be happy to volunteer if you're looking for folks.
Sure. We'll need probably a motion to adopt the number and do that. So Ricky, go ahead.
Thank you. So you mentioned a total of 25 units. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Of new units that'll be broken ground that are targeted for people experiencing homelessness.
So this will be a mixture of, I guess, units for families and units for singles. Do you have any idea of the size mixture of the units potentially available to the homeless community?
I don't have that level of detail.
Okay.
Because I just don't have that level of detail, because some of these projects are still in, contracting phases.
Okay.
And may rely on, vouchers and other things. So, if there's a multifamily development with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and we have a family with a voucher, they could potentially take one of those units as a 2 or 3 bedroom unit. Whereas if, let's say, there isn't a family who's prioritized and there's a 1 bedroom, it could be. But we can see if we can. I think that'll be one of the challenges that we work on this year that we'll report on, is how many of these 25, what are broken out. Either way, I think that's a really good point.
Thank you.
Yep. Ebony, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I know you're still in the planning phases. My question is, how would families apply? And is it different from applying from other homes as well?
No, these are developments. And what we're trying to do as best we can, wherever the city's putting money in, is trying to set up a process for people who can be referred through the continuum of care coordinated entry process of sort of, hey, here's a pipeline and send a vacancy for at least this percentage of units or these number of units, and make sure at least these many number of units are in the pipeline as best we can, and as we try and do more to try and get developers and landlords to give COC first right of refusal, for lack of a better term. Come to us before you go to the open market as best we can without getting in trouble with fair housing laws.
And last questions, how long can a family reside?
These would all be permanent housing placements as long as you're paying your rent. So they would be just open market. I mean, think of it as it's no different than any other apartment in the neighborhood. This would just be, here are certain units that rather than putting these 4 will come to the continuum of care, and please send us 4 eligible people to fill these 4 units or 4 households, whatever it may be. And if the continuum of care is unable to fill these units, then because we don't have qualified people or whatever the issue is, then they would take those units to the market, and the next turnover would come back to continuum of care. That would be the ideal way of making it work.
Thank you.
Other
Oh, and
questions?
I have another follow-up question similar to
Sure.
hers. Given the policy and program subcommittee reporting that they're tracking the number of individuals who are unsheltered and sheltered, and it range anywhere from 110 homeless people in shelter to 10 to 18 families unsheltered, would any of those subpopulations be considered as key individuals that you would probably want to identify for those units?
These would all, well, first, let's make sure we set a timeline. We're breaking ground sometime during this year. These units won't have certificates of occupancy, most likely, until sometime in 2023, maybe 2024, depending on when they break ground and the length of time of the construction project. So we're not talking about actually having anywhere to place anybody in this calendar year. We just want to make sure that we actually get these and get all the details worked out for these 25 units this calendar year. And then we will follow the standard coordinated entry referral process and prioritization process that the continuum of care has already signed off on for referrals to how these units are prioritized.
Okay, so this is next fiscal year.
This would be next calendar year at the soonest for the bulk of for these units, because these are none of these units have broken ground yet.
Yeah.
To my knowledge.
So these projects were identified in your annual action plan?
I would have to find out if all of these projects are specifically in the annual action plan by name. I know
Okay,
the money that's going towards them would be in the annual action plan if we're using any federal money. Some of these are tax credit properties. Some of these are, one of them is a DHA property that DHA has a 5% that's part of the contract for people exiting homelessness in that unit and that property.
okay. Well, that makes sense if, in terms of the time, because calendar year, I'm thinking January to December, fiscal year, June to maybe July 1st to June 30th. So that's why I was trying to get a handle on the time frame. And I know with new construction, it usually takes a little time before everything is actually executed to get a certificate of occupancy. So I was just trying to get a time frame, and also the particular population that we already are tracking to see whether or not that's a group you would identify.
Yeah, it would follow the standard prioritization priorities. Hanalea can share what that prioritization is if you want to hear that. Hanalea.
Sure, yeah, so offered in the chat to share some details on how we prioritize these, and I've got some feedback. Thanks, Ricky, that would be helpful. So a few clarifications on this point first. It is written on paper right now that DHA will prioritize 5% of these units. However, I do want to clarify that currently that's not being implemented. So currently the COC does not have access to those units. So I think we're hopeful that by the time these units will come available, that issue will have been resolved. It is in DHA's admin plan, but currently I cannot coordinate referrals directly for DHA units like I can for vouchers. So I just want to clarify that. When we talk about how we prioritize for units, there's really two separate processes. One is for the DHA managed world of vouchers and eventually, hopefully, DHA properties. The other one is for other affordable housing that is funded through the through CDD. So for DHA properties, there is a policy in place. You can find it, it's in the coordinated entry policies and procedures that's on the website. I don't remember off the top of my head what page it's on, but if you look in the table of contents, you can click on vouchers and it'll take you right there. So the overview is that we prioritize, our first priority for those vouchers is for public housing units when eventually they do come available to us, are for people that are experiencing long-term or chronic homelessness. We also have a separate allocation of a smaller one for people that are moving on from permanent supportive housing, and one for people that have been unable to self-stabilize in rapid rehousing. And that would be the same priority that we would use for public housing if and when we do get that 5% that has been committed to us. For units like CASA units, other affordable housing units, other landlords that dedicate units to us, currently the process is not a traditional like coordinated entry prioritization, because usually those clients have been prioritized for a different intervention. Like they maybe have already prioritized for rapid rehousing or for a voucher. And then what I do is I look at who has been searching the longest, and as units come available that match that family size, I match based on how long people have been searching. The idea being that we're really prioritizing people who have not been able to find housing on the private rental market. If the community wants to use a different process for prioritizing those, that's something that we certainly can discuss. And I think the appropriate place to do that would be the Policies and Procedures Committee. But as of now, that is the process we're using for committed units that are not DHA managed. And I think it's working pretty well. And the anticipated plan is to continue using that process, just prioritizing based on how long people have been searching.
Are there any more questions?
I see a question in the chat that I think I can clarify. Okay, so the 5% will not turn over annually. It is 5% of the overall stock. So it is not 5% of what turns over a year, and it's not 5% of what turns over. It is 5% of the overall stock. So the idea was that, and again, this is on paper at the moment, it's not being implemented, but the idea was that as units come available, in the beginning, we would probably be filling nearly all of those units because we would be starting at 0%. Once we get to that 5% of DHA units being filled by the COC, the referrals would stop. And then as clients move on out of those units would come back to us so we could continue with that 5%. But it is not 5% of available units. It is not 5% a year. It is 5% of the overall DHA public housing stock. And the question is it true that the pool is primarily pulled from people within shelter? No, that is not true. I do not have, well, first, again, I cannot say this enough times. This is hypothetical. We're not currently getting these DHA units, but I can say I can apply this to what we do have currently, which are vouchers and some private landlords who have committed units to us. And I can say that it's actually a very healthy mix of unsheltered clients and sheltered clients. The key being you have to have a provider to work with you. So unsheltered clients who have a street outreach provider, or even we worked with behavioral health providers too sometimes, if they have someone who can refer them. Someone has to be able to work with them and also make the commitment of services that DHA requires of us. They require a 12-month commitment of services. So someone has to have that. But no, I would say, you know, again, I could actually dig into the data if you want it, but at minimum, it's 50-50. It may actually be more unsheltered clients than sheltered clients. Just based on, because it's skewed a little bit because it's who has the eligible clients, right? So it tends to be a little bit more long-term chronic actually are unsheltered than sheltered. So I think maybe 50-50 or around there, but no, it's not accurate to say that only shelter clients are getting access to these resources.
And also to clarify, the Durham Housing Authority is just one of several developers you all are working with to set aside units, correct?
That's correct, Tracy. We're talking at this point on this list, the Housing Authority, we're talking about 2 to 4 of those units. And there's some potential other units that aren't included on this list because they're tax credits that have a totally separate prioritization way and tenant selection plans that would have to be approved by the Housing Authority. So yes, out of this, we're talking about a mix of developers, mission-specific developers, DHA, a wide range of folks, and trying to also maybe go above that 25, but out of the total pool, we think if we can hit 25, it's great based on what we know out there and the challenges that we have with different funders, different hiccups that we have within the system. The 25 number is kind of where we're going to aim for. Hopefully we can do better than that, but there's a lot of things that are kind of outside our control on some of these pieces because not all of the money is, the city can't control everything. There are other factors that play into this that need to be considered. So given the total volume of units that are anticipated to break ground this year, it seemed that 25 would be a fair target to hit and nail down, and hopefully we'll be able to exceed that.
Thank you. I appreciate the breakdown and explaining that.
Is there any other questions for Colin at this moment?
This is
Are you done?
exciting.
Excuse me?
I said, this is exciting.
Yeah, very. Colin, are you finished, Colin? Or does anyone else have any more questions for Colin concerning this? If not, we'll move on to number 7, to the point in time count update, and that's gonna be presented by Lloyd.
Madam Chair,
Lloyd, are you ready? Yes.
may we get just sort of an approval or a motion to approve these numbers to go forward from the HSAC?
Sure. You got to help me along with this.
Sure.
You
Just
know.
ask if there's a motion to approve the
So is there
185.
is there a motion to approve?
I don't know what the motion is supposed to be because we kind of went off on this second thing. So can you just refresh our memories, Colin?
Sure.
Yeah,
A motion to approve the 185 households being rehoused, experiencing homelessness be housed. So during calendar year 2022, the continuum will aim to rehouse 185 households and aim to work to identify 25 units to be developed for people exiting homelessness.
So that's a lot right there, Colin.
Okay.
So you go ahead and break it down because you went off on 2 or 3 different things, and then we on something for a year or something from now. So you could break it down for me, please, so they can understand it because I'm lost.
So
thank you.
We would need a motion to approve rehousing 185 households during calendar year 2022 and to approve bringing 25 dedicated units or prioritized units for people exiting homelessness to be used in the next year.
Okay, y'all got that?
I'm sure somebody else can make it a much fancier or cleaner motion.
No, that's all right. That's good enough. Motion to someone to approve for that one.
Chair, the motion needs to be submitted by someone on the HSAC, I believe, not staff.
So moved. Drew?
Is anyone here?
Yeah, we're thinking about what was all said, Madam Chair.
Ellen, I second.
Okay,
Helen.
you have that. Dr. Birch, do you have that?
And I got it. Waiting on your
Thank-
vote.
Okay,
So hold on. So Drew made a motion to approve
Yeah.
185 and 25.
And Helen second.
Did Helen second it? Okay.
Yes.
And then all in favor, vote in the chat.
aye.
Okay.
This is,
Aye. Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes with 2 noes.
okay. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Birch. We're moving on to number 8. I mean, number 7, I'm sorry, Lloyd. For you, Lloyd, are you ready?
I'm ready. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and HSAC members and other attendees. Lloyd Schmeiler with Community Development Department. Brief overview of preparations for the 2022 point in time count. The official night of the count will be 1 week from today, January 26th, 2022. Our general point in time count plan is to reprise what we did in January of 2021 last year, working primarily through the street outreach team at Housing for New Hope and our by name list of unsheltered people that's being maintained by Hanalea as the coordinated entry administrator to confirm the literal homelessness of the unsheltered people on those lists. As in previous years, the sheltered count will be primarily managed through the record keeping in the Homeless Management Information System, the HMIS. That will be supplemented by a report from the Durham Crisis Response Center, which is exempt from participation in HMIS. We will work to get a point in time count report of the survivors of domestic violence being sheltered by DCRC as well. In the 2021 collaborative application for continuum of care funds, we made a commitment to also conduct a youth point in time count in conjunction with the more general count. And I have been coordinating and organizing that effort. That effort is specifically focused on identifying unsheltered youth in the 18 to 24-year-olds age group. And we are working with a number of community partners to develop a more robust count that focuses on interviewing as many unsheltered youth in that age group as we can find, as well as housing unstable young people who may be in the community. And so our community partners have been the city's Office on Youth, which is operated out of the city manager's office, the Life Skills Foundation, the LGBTQ Center. We've also done outreach with the representatives on the HSAC from Durham Tech, as well as NC Central University. Also done some outreach to representatives at Duke University. You know that all of these institutions of higher learning have food pantries making food assistance available to students and staff. So there may be some housing unstable young people matriculating at those institutions, and we are working with representatives to try to make sure that we are including those representatives. and making contact with those youth and including them in the housing unstable count and identifying any homeless youth as well, who might be literally unsheltered. The general count for the youth point in time count is going to be conducted on January 28th and 29th, so Friday and Saturday of next week, where we hope to deploy as many as 16 teams of youth, all led by an adult age 26 and over. But the best practice is that youth in the 18 to 25-year-old age group do a much better job of getting youth to respond to an invitation to complete a survey than youth responding to an older adult like me. So we are working to still recruit more youth participants for that surveying. We plan to deploy teams from 1 to 8 p.m. on those 2 days, January 28th and 29th, in 4 general locations, excuse me, in the Durham community, in the downtown bus station and throughout the downtown area, focusing especially on youth who might be at the skateboard park in Central Park, as well as perhaps visiting the downtown public library and more generally in the downtown area. Then the commercial retail district in the 9th Street and Broad Street area adjacent to Duke's East Campus, as well as in the South Point Mall area. And currently we only have 17 volunteers. We'll deploy as many teams as we can with the limited number of volunteers that we do have available to us. We are offering $25 gift cards as an incentive, especially as an incentive to youth to participate in the count. And we're hoping that over the next several days, we will see additional volunteers agreeing to assist with the count. We have trainings. Trainings are mandatory, and we have virtual training scheduled for tomorrow at 3 p.m., Tuesday, January 25th at 6 p.m. And then there's a recording of tomorrow's session will be available online at the COC website for people who want to view that recording during the next week. We are using a mobile application, the same mobile application. It's called Counting Us, that has been developed by Simtech Solutions, is the name of the company. We have entered into a professional services agreement with them, and that has proven to be a good tool for us, and we are working to deploy that as well. That's and particularly grateful to Vega Swepson, the representative from Durham Tech on this body, as well as Colleen Herbert at NC Central for helping coordinate efforts to ensure that any housing unstable students at those institutions are included in the count. Also done some outreach with Ebony Ross at Durham Public Schools, the McKinney-Vento coordinator there, to ensure that any housing unstable and unsheltered youth and sheltered youth that are enrolled in the Durham Public Schools are also included in this year's count. And that's my report. I'm certainly happy to respond to any questions.
Lloyd, I have a quick question. With the weather that's like it's getting ready to have another snowstorm this weekend. So what do you have a backup plan for if it's if they have inclement weather next week when you're trying to go out and have this done? Is there a plan B?
If we need to postpone the count, we can, especially because of the weather, we can request a postponement from HUD And if we needed to postpone, we've not set any kind of postponement date, but HUD has indicated that if need be, we could postpone later into February if we needed to.
Okay, because with the, last week's storm and this one coming up, I'm like kind of, weatherman says one thing, but always good to have a plan B, right?
I hope you're not suggesting that these storms are going to come in threes and we should expect another one.
Well, I
next
hope
week.
it doesn't come tomorrow. So no, it's God's way. So whatever he's sitting down, that's what we're dealing with. So just thought I'd ask. Are there any other questions for Lloyd at this moment from anyone? So are we voting on this one, Colin?
No, there's no need.
No,
for a vote.
nothing. Okay, with that being said, going once, twice. Any more questions for Lloyd at this moment? All right, we're gonna move on to number 8. White flag update, open table ministry. Carolyn, are you ready to present?
I am. I'm not sure exactly what you all want to hear, except just an update. So far, since the 1st of January, we have sheltered 559 individuals with an average of 31 per night at Trinity. And yes, I do remember clearly that our maximum was 20, but there's not anywhere to send folks other than out into the cold. And as I'm sure you've noticed, it's been unbelievably cold. So we have managed to socially distance, and it's working. We have, the average has been 31 people per night, but now that's an average. We have had well over that. Last night we had 35. The night before that we had 35. During the snow, we had an all-day shelter, all night and then all day. Fed them food and got a big TV out, and we all watched the football game, the playoffs football game, and everybody had a grand time. I've never heard my community laughing and enjoying and just being together in that way. It was really quite wonderful. CDI, we started there actually on December 1st. So the numbers are from December 1st to January 17th. We've done 505 rooms during that time. Some are families, some are disabled adults and medically vulnerable. We have had, on any given night, between 5 and 14 children sheltered there, ranging in age from 2 weeks to 14 years. And many of them, I would say most of them, have been for a week at a time because we've not had warm nights to get any rest with that. So, it's a week at a time. We're checking them in on Monday and checking on them the following Monday to extend them another week. I'm anticipating the question, so this time instead of a 1-day ice in, they're forecasting 2 days. And yes, we're getting groceries in again and working with our staff to work the shelter 24 hours during the time that it's not safe for them to be out. The forecast is actually to drop down into the mid-teens, 14, 15 degrees after the snow. So we're going to try to keep everybody safe. So far, it's worked well. The folks that we're sheltering have been very well behaved and very grateful, and I cannot say that enough. They have been very, very grateful to have the opportunity to stay. I just realized that my mute is off, but my video is not. Sorry. I am here. There you can see me. They've been very, very well behaved. We've had almost no reprimands and nobody thrown out for any kind of behavior issue. We do have one gentleman that is quite ill mentally that we are having to really watch carefully, but there really is no place for him to go under the circumstances, so we're trying to make the best of it, and just have staff watching him very carefully. Are there questions?
I do. I have a question. So you stated that you're allocated to have 20, but you've been having 35. So with that, is that 35 for the extended stay during the day as well?
Well, it was this time, yes.
So do you, with it coming up again this weekend, have you kind of like set up a plan to keep them from being out in the street in a snowstorm again like you did this weekend? How is that looking?
That's what I just said, that yes, we're planning the meals and we're planning to shelter them not only during the daytime, but not only during the nighttime, but all day long and as long as it's necessary until it's safe for them to go out. Now,
Yes, you said for 2 days, but that's why I was wondering is it for as long as needed? This one is supposed to be a little bit worse than the other one.
it is supposed to be worse than the other one. I don't anticipate that it'll be needed longer than Sunday, but like you just said a few minutes ago, we don't know. We'll do the best we can. We'll do the best we can. We do have to keep people safe, and that is really, really important. That includes having an opportunity to sanitize things. We have 2 air sanitizers going that each one is supposed to be effective for more than 50% more of the room that we have. So actually the sanitizers we're running are 3 times what is effective for the volume of air we're sanitizing, and is supposed to be effective against viruses as well as other things. We're using aerosol sanitizers, but until this has happened, we've never used it with people in the room. So we're checking labels and being really careful to be sure that it's safe for us to use with people in the room, so that we can sanitize it. We've been sanitizing twice a day, once as they're leaving and once before they come back, so that everything is sanitized as best we can. And that's one of the issues with this gentleman that is so ill. He's not able to confine himself to one place and wanders all around the room, and we're trying really hard to make that stop. All I can tell you is that everybody, all of our staff and I are very committed to do the very best we can to keep COVID at bay. So far, we've been able to block it at the door mostly. We had one gentleman come in, but fortunately was isolated under the stair room area because it was crowded. He was not in the general population, and left for the hospital at about 2:30 in the morning by EMS. And then tested positive for COVID once he got to the hospital. When we checked him in, he answered no to all of the COVID screening questions, and then started running a fever in the middle of the night. I don't know that that can be prevented, except we were fortunate this time that he was not in the general population.
Does anyone else have any questions for Carolyn at this time?
I have a quick comment, Madam Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
Carolyn, I appreciate you coming and giving us this update, and I think it is the case that the past 2 winters, Open Table Ministries has been the only bidder on the city's RFP for White Flag Shelter. And so I just want to observe, as you describe the number of days and nights and so forth, provisions and everything that you all have provided to the community, that without you, Durham would really be up a creek. And so that we owe you a large debt of gratitude, and sort of in a more pedestrian administrative way, I would also submit to the HSAC that being in this kind of situation where there really is only one provider who is, kind of able to do this kind of work. And when that one provider is really held up, in many ways by I know you have lots of dedicated staff, Carolyn, but I think without you, it's hard to imagine this happening. And I think that's a precarious position for Durham to be in. And I think we ought to give that some thought, how we kind of create a more sustainable, predictable approach to white flag work for future years.
Thank you. That's very kind. In order to reassure you a little bit, I've got a fabulous vice chair, assistant director, and by the way, they're expecting a baby almost any minute. She's not in labor yet, but the baby's overdue. So
I rest my case.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So you just stated you've been the one that's been doing it. So what has Durham been doing for the homeless when it's in bad weather? Like now, what's different from when it was, what you all said, 2 years or 3 years ago? How is that different? When it gets cold outside, as long as it's not snowing, it was last weekend. So how are we going to be able to handle that? Is there another alternative way to handle it?
So in the past, this is Sharita. In my experience from the past, Urban Ministries has opened up to whatever their capacity could be to take people on cots just for the night. That is what we've had. We've also relied on Durham Rescue Mission to take folks in, and traditionally that's what we've done. I think that we've always needed a provider in our community to step up and do what Open Table has done. The blessing and the curse in that is that if one steps up, then one in our community just kind of gets railroaded, and they have to choose when they get over 20 people, whether to let somebody freeze outside or, come inside. And so I would say that, we don't have an adequate response. I think that we need to look at it just not so much just when it's cold, because that implies something. That implies that the only time we care about people being unsheltered on the street is when it's too cold outside. And we need to change our position on there. And it should be that it's never okay for children, and people to be outside, that we need to have some adequate option for people to be inside until we can do something else. If we can't house them in permanent housing, we need to have some kind of response. I commend you, Miss Carolyn, but I pray every day that nothing bad happens because of your heart and your sacrifice and your care for this community. You've been doing it for a very, very long time. I'm very disappointed in our community that we are not doing a better job to support you so that you don't have to put yourself and your staff at risk. I thank you, Miss Carolyn, but I feel like we as a community, we need to be doing more than what we're doing. But thank you for your sacrifice.
Thank you so much, Sharita. I appreciate those words. Let me say this, that I have had to turn people away. I have had to turn people away a number of nights. I do turn them away with a warm sleeping bag in their hand, a new one that is rated for the temperature that it is outside, and the invitation to sleep under the breezeway there. Would be safe just outside the door, and our staff can check on them periodically. Because when it is that cold, it's dangerous no matter where they're sleeping. I'm sure that it didn't miss anybody's radar that Orange County had somebody die not far at all from their shelter. And I just could not ever sleep again on a cold night if that happened outside Trinity's shelter. I hope that you all would be moved to the same, and that by next year maybe there is additional space, because the numbers don't match, y'all. The numbers do not match. I'm not good at memorizing numbers. Anybody that knows me well knows that if I'm going to say anything about numbers, I've got to read them, because I just don't remember numbers well. But I know that the numbers that I have, 35 to 40 in my shelter, do not match the 100 plus that are on the street every night.
Mhm.
They don't match.
And that's even more disturbing because that means that we're not getting everybody that's on the street.
We're not. We're not.
Especially with families that are sleeping in cars with their children. It's unacceptable. But thank you, Carolyn, and your staff.
Thank you.
From being there last year, and I know how it is when you have to turn away people. And it's just kudos to you for being able to keep them safe and warm. Because it was cold last week. I called Colin early in the morning crying like, Colin, look, it's cold out there. Where are the people going? They're going to have to check out. And he let me know that they were able to stay. So for that, I thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Madam Chair, this is Shayna. I just had I wanted to mention something that we talked about in the previous meeting right before this, in the white flag meeting. When I worked at a day shelter in Greensboro and we were doing white flag, we were able to coordinate with emergency systems to provide transportation for our staff to get to and from the shelter, and not putting, staff and vehicles on the road that maybe shouldn't be when we have inclement weather, and was wondering if there was possibility of anybody, on the emergency, assistance, emergency response efforts that might be able to work with white flag and other shelter providers on days where there is inclement weather, to be able to make sure that they are staffed and that the services that we're supposed to be providing are happening.
Thank you, Shayna. But is it anyone that can respond to that with additional help? That's going to definitely be needed.
I don't think there's anybody from our emergency management division who's part of the HSAC. The tricky part is that often kind of on-call emergency folks are also, very busy during a snow emergency. And so it could be a little tricky kind of promising that, but it's a topic I can raise with them and that, we could talk further about.
Yeah, it was basically kind of worked out in advance, and a staff member would just call the non-emergency number, and if there was somebody in the area that was not involved in an emergency, they may be able to pick them up and then bring them to the shelter, just to ensure that the staff was able to make it, and that we weren't creating more traffic on the roads that didn't need to happen. But I think that white flag would definitely take precedence. But I didn't know if there was something like this with the hospital system already in place and other places that have to remain open during bad weather, because most of the other city will shut down.
And just to your point, one of my new staff people that is just very dedicated to this kind of work got to the shelter 3 hours before his shift, saying that he knew that we would need help since we were staying open, and he seemed unusually stressed. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Well, that's the first time I've ever driven in snow in my life, and I almost didn't make it." So that would be a good example of why that would be. It would be very helpful.
Yeah. I keep forgetting this is not like the city up in DC and how they handle things opposed to how they handle it down here. But that would be great. Like they get the people from the hospital back and forth to work. It's a great need to have them get there back and forth safe to where you are as well. Any other questions for Carolyn at this time?
I just want to make one more little observation that I didn't even think would be relevant, but it is now. The buses quit, by the way, at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And that meant that folks that wanted to get to us couldn't. I'm talking about unsheltered folks that wanted to get to us couldn't. So, there's that.
Well, thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Drew. Are there any more questions for Carolyn at this moment before we continue?
Madam Chair, if I may just fill in a gap
Yes.
as well. So in addition to Carolyn's open table ministry at Trinity and at Carolina Duke, Urban Ministries has opened up an additional 2 beds for female overflow and 4 beds for male overflow. And Durham Rescue Mission has said that they don't have a curfew and folks can sort of come over there anytime. And Urban Ministries will be opening their cafe Thursday, Friday this week from, give me a second. They'll be opening up on the 20th and 21st from 10 to 3 in the cafe for a warming station for people, for about 10 to 12 people at a time.
So they're kind of like gonna rotate who's gonna be warm?
Well, I think that's the way it's going to need to work. I mean, they've got space for 10 or 12. I don't know that they'll be asking people to leave. I don't know how that works, if Sheldon or I don't know if anybody from Urban Ministries is here. I just was sharing that they are bringing on some extra capacity for those 2 days. Weekends, they're not able to do it because they're serving 3 meals a day.
Yeah,
out of
so
this place.
Colin, it won't necessarily be a rotation. Who's ever there, whosoever comes will be offered and provided. We'll just make it available. Nobody's going to be put out necessarily, hey, if you get to 11 people and now one's got to go, that's not going to happen. But we'll be able to entertain whoever shows up.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you, Sheldon. And by the way, Urban Ministries has been feeding our folks at CDI too. I'm sorry, Sheldon, I didn't mention that. It's really important.
No problem. And just so you know, we are going to send down tomorrow, I guess, 30 additional sort of snack bags. Just it'll have a variety of things that people might benefit from in between meals.
Great, thank you.
They'll be staying there, so they'll be for your residents.
Thank you.
Carolyn, I have a quick question. So if someone wants to donate things for the residents that are there, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, they can reach out to me or Vicky right at the resource center. There's things that they want to provide.
Okay, especially food, because people do be hungry.
Correct.
Yes. Well, thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, Carolyn. And is there anyone else that has any questions on this topic right here? Okay, I guess we're not. So we're moving on to the announcements. Is there anyone that would like to make an announcement or anything at this moment before we leave? Okay, so I guess everyone is said what they had to say. So I have a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. Yes, I just wanted to make for the record, let me pull over before I go out of range here, but that I voted no on that earlier motion, and I need to say it so I can put it in my own minutes, that the reason I voted no on that motion was in the event that those units that we voted on does not go particularly to the ones that we've expressed. It gives me and it gives Sharita, because she voted no, the right to bring that back to the floor. And I just wanted to make that so I could put that in the minutes.
Thank you so much for your explanation.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay, so anyone else?
Hi, Madam Chair. This is Brooke Anderson, the program manager at CDI at the Hotel to Home program. And I just wanted to announce really quick that we have some on-site COVID testing tomorrow morning from 8 to, I believe, about 9:30. So it's for our clients and staff, but you can also refer any clients, or if anyone needs tested, you can send them over. If you do have insurance, they'll take down your insurance information, but if you don't, that's fine. They'll still test you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Peter let me know that today when I spoke with him. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for bringing it up though. As he said, it is
sure.
going to be there tomorrow morning.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we're all done for the day. Have a motion to adjourn from someone off the gallery.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we got 10 people. Go ahead, pick one. Everybody ready to go? Go ahead, Dr. Burris, do your thing. Pick two.
Motion carried.
I feel you. All right, with that being said, everyone have a great day. Be safe. God bless. And goodbye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye. Be safe, you all.